So, my teacher in school handed out a piece of paper. It was a test to see how well we followed instructions. And passed it out to all the people in the room. And we were to read the paper, and then we were to do and hand the paper in when we were done with all of the work. The first thing that was written on the paper was, read carefully the instructions on this paper. You know, read the whole piece of paper first. Read carefully the whole piece of paper first. And so the next line was to fill out your name and the date and all this kind of stuff. But nobody read the whole paper before they started filling it out. Everybody disobeyed rule number 1. So we got to the end of the paper, all right, and it said disregard everything before. Now on this paper were all sorts of things like squawk like a chicken, hold your nose, do this, that, the other thing, and the paper was supposed to be filled out also. But what was supposed to be handed in was a blank sheet of paper. Now let's take a look at Matthew chapter 5 and verse 17. It says, do not say or do not think that I have come to abolish the law. I have come to fulfill the law and the prophets. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law and the prophets. I have come to fulfill them. Heaven and earth shall not pass away, not one jot or one tittle will pass away from the law. You know, so until heaven and earth pass away, right? All that in there, right? But in the law and the prophets, it talks about a new covenant. In the law and the prophets, which are a shadow of the things to come, it talks about the Messiah. So in the law and the prophets, it says that the temple worship in the old covenant would end. So by understanding that the new way to heaven is in Jesus Christ, okay, then you're following the law and the prophets, because Moses said, in Deuteronomy 18, I think it was, that you have to follow the new prophet. You know, behold, a prophet is coming, and you're to obey him, and he's going to be like me, standing between you and the law. Remember, this was at Mount Horeb, and the people were afraid of the mountain, because God was on the mountain, and they wanted Moses to go between them. So God said to Moses that there's a prophet to come like you, standing between them and the law. What stands between a man and the law? Jesus Christ. And so this is the way we stand before the holy mountain. And this makes the whole Bible make sense. Not one jot or one tittle of the law passed away, but in the law and the prophets it says that I will establish a new covenant. Where is that? Well, you can find it in Jeremiah chapter 31, but you can also find it in Hebrews chapter 8, because it's quoted on purpose to show you something. But remember in Matthew chapter 5, it also says that if your righteousness is not more righteous than the Pharisees, your personal righteousness has to be more righteous than the Pharisees. Well, there's no one righteous enough to get to heaven, so who has more righteousness than the Pharisees? Jesus. So here is something in Romans chapter 3, before we go on to Hebrews, in verse 21. But now the righteousness of God has been manifest apart from the law, although the law and the prophets bear witness to it. Here again, not one jot or tittle of the law will go away, and it says a righteousness from God that comes through faith will come, and it's prophesied about where? By the law and the prophets. Right? So now let's go to chapter 8 here, verse 7. For if that first covenant had been faultless, there would have been no occasion to look for a second. And in much of this, by the way, it says that the first covenant had to be done away with to usher in the second one. And it did, because if you're trying to get to heaven through the bulls and rams and sacrifices and trying to do mitzvot and all those things, then you miss the point about Jesus Christ. So, behold, the days are coming. This is 8 verse 8. For he finds fault with them when he says, behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will establish a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. Not like the covenant I made with their fathers on the day when I took them by the hand and brought them out of Egypt. For they did not continue in my covenant, so I showed no concern for them, declares the Lord. So when He's established a new covenant, it had nothing to do with the old one that He established with Israel. So this new covenant came that had nothing to do with the old one, so all these sacrifices, yearly sacrifices, ended. And you will say, well, the sacrifices were supposed to be perpetual. And I told you that they're not perpetual, that the word for perpetual or everlasting was olam. And the word olam, okay, means out of sight. You could look into the past. It's like a horizontal word. It's actually directional, okay, and that word does not mean forever and ever. It means time out of sight. And you can find that on my video on olam, not forever. Okay? So the old covenant was ended. And so in verse 13 it says, in speaking of the new covenant, He makes the first one obsolete. And what is becoming obsolete is growing old and is ready to vanish away. Remember that the temple fell. So you couldn't even follow the old command, because the old command involved the temple. And so it's vanished away. The Jews are trying to resurrect it today, and so are the Jews for Jesus. Why? They want to sacrifice at the temple, when the sacrifice is Jesus Christ. I hope you really think about this. Thank you.